Friday evening, and I hope that every one of you is doing well this evening. Oh man, it's always amazing to me because I wake up in the morning and I'm like, okay, so what is this day going to behold? What am I going to experience and feel and gain insights through and have reactions to today? What input is going to come into my experience where I'm going to find myself gaining new understandings, new versions of understandings, and the willingness to keep walking through the muck, even though it gets kind of mucky. So this morning, no surprise when I was asked in meditation, which by the way, this marks the fifth week, I think, fifth or sixth week that I've been doing this in a row. And so, you know, finding a rhythm certainly hasn't been easy. Even though I've been doing it every day, it felt more like a task, whereas now it feels like an honoring. And what helped me to create that was creating my list for today last night. So again, back to the pre-planning. I think there's some kind of magic, excuse me, in the predetermining or the forecasting of, here's all the things that I want to include in my day tomorrow. And this is the order that I want to do them in, because I have a tendency to get up and feel a bit scattered and rushed everywhere. Whereas today, what I noticed was, because I had made such a cognizant effort of making sure that everything was rhythmic, that everything was in alignment with what it is that I say that I want to do, and that it wasn't a should list, it was a pull or drawn to and want to, a desired list. Not that it didn't have content on there that was necessary. Laundry, painting a sign, the sort of logistics of life that when things need to get done, that's the way it is. So today, it was no surprise when my meditation asked me to write a letter to someone. And recently, I had the experience of just revisiting some stuff with my dad. So, my dad's been gone 22 years in June. And over that 22 years, I've learned so much in the wake of his loss and in the lead up to his death. So my dad growing up was super angry, super agitated all the time. It was like walking on eggshells. And it wasn't that I can't frame him as he was loving. It was just harsh. And it was coming from an extremely damaged place that was fueled by alcohol, fueled by avoidance, fueled by unwillingness to take a look. And then at 56, or just before, he got sort of a wake-up call. Not that he hadn't had them throughout his life, because I remember some of the experiences in what I would consider a wake-up call for him, and what I experienced later from his opinion of things that were trying to tap him on the shoulder along the way. But it wasn't until, we're up against what could be considered as a holy shit, it's time to pay attention. And ultimately, usually in my experience of cancer, finding out that you have it, not knowing what to do with it, it has been there for a long time. It's probably stuck feelings and emotions, like dis-ease. And I know that intellectually. I've known that for a long time intellectually, but trying to understand it from an emotional point of view, and having the emotional wherewithal to be able to discern what's mine, what's his, what, matters, what doesn't, and really investigating, our relationship, because for a long time it was extremely tumultuous. He would argue the sky is blue until he's blue in the face, because when it came to him and I, it was not okay for me to have an opinion. My opinion was somehow deemed as wrong. And so it made me want to fight for it, because it was my feeling. And someone was telling me, you can't have it. And so we knocked horns a lot over our lifetimes. But it was when he got sick that I ultimately took it as an opportunity to get to know him, the man behind the curtain, the man behind the dad hat that he wore. I started getting curious, like, I see the anger, I experience the anger, but what's underlying that? What caused it? And as soon as I started getting curious in those ways with him, it opened up a whole new experience with him. And what I saw in the last year or so in his life was a becoming. It was a softened man. It was a man that cleaned up some of his messes before he left. It was a man who let me in to the reasons why he was experiencing the pain, and his way of coping with it was to be angry and aggressive because he did not know how to handle all of the stuff that was inside of him. And that got on us. That stuff got on us as kids to some degree or another. And it starts to fester because it is an actual attack to the nervous system. It's not just something that I make up in my head. It's something that I actually physically experienced as a child over and over and over again, was some pretty harsh traumas. Again, not that he didn't love us, not that he didn't have the capacity to love us. He just didn't know how to love until way later in life. And that was the most beautiful thing, because it made me pay attention when he started making subtle changes that I could pay attention to, and I could noticeably discern there was something different about his energy, there was something different about his demeanor, there was something different about his intention. And even though, excuse me, it didn't go away or anything, and that he didn't, become some, saint, there was a point in time when he became saint-like, when he was definitely at the end of life. And my experience of at the end of life, people have some sort of insight to all the regrets that they had, to wanting to make it different and leave this place cleaner as a result. And the things that my dad laid down before he left triggered responses in our family that have created monumental shifts in our lineage, in our legacy. And because my dad went first, because he showed me an example of what that could look like, I became curious in my own right to start discovering those things about me and start my journey of becoming. And now I find myself at a place where today I was able to write him a beautiful letter. And I just said, I'm going to just let whatever comes. And it ended up being such a lovely experience, because I was worried that I might write about some of the historical meh. And that was graceful. It wasn't crunchy. It wasn't, hardened or anything else. It was from a loving and kind place. And in retrospect, a great deal of gratitude, because without my ability to understand my dad, to understand where it is that he came from, where it is that he experienced his life, some of the things behind some of the behaviors, because behaviors are a huge indicator for what's really going on when we pay attention and ask questions instead of get defensive and be on the defense and be righteously right about our position. And I had this wonderful experience today where I got to do that and do some releasing when it came to him, and really understanding a little bit further about my experience with him and food and my childhood with food. It got beaten into me with this literal stick. Like, I hate to laugh at that, but I'm just like, wow, that is alarming. But the behavior back then was similar to that in most families. There was this, there was spanking going on. There was a lot of, anger and hostility. There was things disguised as love and care. And although I now understand them to be love and care, at the time, I was arrested in my body. And that arresting in time stayed like this. Because, although we're just our body is here, that inside it's an expansive place. There's 53 trillion cells going on in there. It's an expansive place. And those kind of triggers gets stuck, and that energy gets stuck. And it's now my job to go and uncover it all. And I heard from Sherry Hauser today saying that I really loved, because I love imagery. And her saying was, to mine and shine the gold within. To mine and shine the gold within. And the mining part is important, because it's not just about, yay, look at my gold, look at my shine, look at me. Yeah, my light's on. It takes discernible effort to actually mine that stuff out, and to go in and carefully remove the gems, the gold, uncover and polish some of the stuff that's in there that has been piled up upon. That stuff gets on us. It gets in us. It grows and festers there until we're willing to shine a light on it and witness what was behind the feeling, what was behind the experience. What was feeding that? What was the purpose in it? What was the circumstance in it? Where did it come from? These things have a source. It's not just something tra-la-la-la-la-la-la. There's a source to things. And when we're damaged, or lack of a better term, when we incur damages, particularly because it is chemical, there is something that chemically happens in the body. It's not just in the mind. It is actually a full body and spirit experience. So it's not just mental, it's emotional, it's physical, it's spiritual. It's the combination of all three of those things. And then things get fragmented. And then we put Band-Aids on them. Or we sweep it under the rug, proverbially, And unfortunately, that just causes big lumps. And I can see, how the stuff that got on me, I just hadn't realized the depth of its rootedness. And today I got to do a little bit more discovering around uncovering some of that stuff, some of that murky, mucky stuff that doesn't feel good, that I don't want to be feeling. But as long as I'm in avoidance of feeling it, as long as I'm pushing it away, another day, another time, later on, someday, every day gives us an opportunity just to take another peek. Wow, imagine that. Look what showed up today. Synchrodestiny, because it aligned with this and this and this. When I allow it to. When I'm in resistance to it, then I'm creating more of it. I'm creating the static around it to create more chaos, more feeling, feeling. And by right, all of those days exist, and today, so I'm in this stage at this moment, investigating like a sleuth, just from a different point of view. How else could I look at this? Where did this come from? Uncovering that stuff, because it's in there. And we just have to be willing to take a look. Just a little look-see. I get that it can be scary. I get it. I'm so drawn to the fact that right now, seeing and experiencing the difference from a parental point of view, me as a parent looking back, my dad as a parent looking back, and how some of the things that he did taught me some of the ways that I wouldn't do life, that I wouldn't be a parent. And there were some ways that I was a parent that taught my daughter now how not to be in her parenting, which teaches her and hones her skill of what to do as a parent. And I see that some of the sacrifices that I made, some of the decisions that I made, intuitively, really, because there was nobody leading the way. I was in some pretty serious dark places. And it was like feeling around in the dark going, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I know I have to keep moving forward. And my kids were always the driving force for that. And recently I understand now that it has to be me at the center of my universe, at the center of my and core of my being. My responsibility lies solely with me. And what an amazing gift and a huge burden at the same time, Because this is the hardest thing to say. I do my work on me, for me, by me. Because it's so much easier to point fingers and in a direction that says, well, it must be something you did. Or my mom really screwed me up. Or my dad was an angry asshole. Or life just didn't treat me fair. Or my boss was a jerk. Or life isn't fair. Or that car accident was my fault or wasn't my fault. And on and on and on, because we can be justifiers of this righteous place that we stand. This position that we take that makes everybody else the doers and us being the ones done to. Now, we have a decision, obviously, to make, and I really like the imagery of this too, of this idea. When I'm at the effective life, I'm bumping into things. I'm this cork in the ocean that's bumping into things and reacting based on what it's bumping into. When I'm at cause, which I'm practicing more and more and more every day, the ability to be in cause, at cause, purposefully cause my life. Design it to be a certain way. Predetermine what that looks like and then live into that place. And the more and more that I do that, the more and more I am fulfilled and peaceful and harmonious when I've continually looked like that to be somewhere outside of me. I hope you love yourself today. I hope you experienced joy today, that you had some level of release today, and that you learned something today. So much love. See you tomorrow.